I will start by saying this. How many people live in Prince George's County? Hands raised. Okay, we got a couple people here. It's ironic for me that we're here. I might be one of the only ones on the stage that was actually born in the U.S. I was born right in Providence Hospital. And this building and area means so much to me, and I'm going to tell you why. I was born, my parents are mostly Liberian, my mom is also Nigerian, but my great-great-grandfather was Prince Mamulu Massaquoi. And one of the big stories, and he's Liberian, and this is from Vi, I know that any Liberians, I know there's some Liberians here, got some Liberians on stage. One of the things that I was taught when I was growing up, right down the street, because my first place that I lived was right Kenyon Street, right off Georgia Avenue, was how he bridged the gap. And he was ambassador for Liberia to Germany, but he also connected with Marcus Garvey and some other African American leaders to help with the Back to Africa movement, connecting African Americans and Africans together. So when I was born here, this whole area was full of Africans, because many people, especially the Liberian community, was coming in droves especially during the Civil War. And we were all up and down the street. So you would walk down to what's now Columbia Heights, and so it's fun, and everybody's like kind of, you see all types of color there, but back then it was mostly immigrants. And we would go get our food and walk around. And one of the things that my mom taught me is like the importance of bridging the gap. One of the things that we saw, and this is what I see in Prince George's County, is the African diaspora oftentimes isn't connected to Africa. We come here and we lose it and we don't even look back. So what I've seen is that as I was growing up here, I was growing up around people. I had an African name. Walla is my name. My full name is Walla Kilm, but when I was young, you called me by my full name. And I went to an Afrocentric school because my mother wanted me to maintain my connection with Africa. So I went to Watoto. Anybody know Watoto? Yes. All right, Nation House. And what Nation House had was African Americans who really wanted to connect with Africa. Everybody was connected. It was so funny. I just came from Kenya, and we used to speak Swahili. We used to say Jambo, and just learning the African language in another space. But then when I left Watoto, I went to Southeast. And there, I got criticized for being African. Unfortunately, I've experienced the same in Prince George's County. Prince George's County is a place that is majority African American. We pride ourselves in HBCU. I didn't want to say HU. I didn't go to HU, but that's what you said. Like you have Hampton, they got the Howard versus Hampton, they've got all the HU. We celebrate Black leadership. But we oftentimes don't connect it to Africa. And therefore, we have become short-sighted. So reason why this meant so much to me, this area, and I thought it was just, almost brought tears to my eyes, because years ago, my mother started an organization that was called Bridging the Gap. And Bridging the Gap was bridging Africa and African Americans so that we could be together in Africa. And there, we used to meet here. And we would meet here where African Americans who were interested in Africa would show up and we would learn, and my mom would teach things about Africa growing up in Nigeria and even the Liberian side, and we would just learn, that was really just impactful. But the reality is that it wasn't enough African Americans, it wasn't enough people there. And as I got into this position in Prince George's County, as I was running, I noticed that I would go into African American communities. Of course, I consider myself African American, but I know my roots. And I always want to connect with Africa. But the reality is that as we walked into community, you saw the division. And we'll say, oh, she's African. But the reality is that we're causing the division. The reality is that it clicked for me not too long ago, because I've just been involved in politics, as my sister said, I was in the community. But I've dug in different ones. I was in an immigrant community, I was in African American, but I didn't even think about the distinction until I started putting my name out there and people started pointing at me and saying, you're not one of us. Even on the African side, you're not one of us. So we're all divided. What we did one day, and I don't know if you remember this. This was in 2017. We met at Dr. Rumi Duile's house. And in that room, it wasn't just, usually Africans gather among themselves, we gather among ourselves. African Americans gather among themselves, they gather among themselves, but we divided. But that room was filled with everybody from all different parts, African American, Africans, Caribbeans, everybody. And what you said to everyone there is no reason that African countries don't know what Prince George's County is. Because we should be focused on investing in Africa. And there was a light bulb that went in me because, as Dr. Jeffries notes, when I think about home, I think about the cousins, the family members that call and say, I need this, I need that. We don't have no food, no this, no that, no that. And then here we're sending money, send more money. We're stuck, we don't have this, we don't have that. So that's what I think about, and that's what I've been doing, that's what I've been doing for years. But what is the result of that? I give you $200 here, you're gonna come back and ask me for more money in 6 months. Because we're not thinking about actual investments. We are thinking about just putting quick food in our family's mouth. That would not sustain them. That's gonna be another generation. The mother of my cousin begged me for money. My cousin is now older, has kids, she's begging me for money. Now her child will come and they will be begging me for money. We are not advancing. So what she said at that meeting was life-changing to me because that meant that I would only go to an African and say, we should invest back, we should do business back home. But what she said is that, why are you just talking to your family members? I should be talking to even the brother and sister, the African American next door to me to say, what are we doing to invest in Africa? And that was